Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we are breaking down one of the absolute ultimate superhero matchups of all time. We're talking the Dark Knight taking on the Web Slinger. But we're not just throwing them in a ring. We're going to examine this through a really specific tactical lens based on the data and research from across both of their histories. We're breaking down exactly how this fight goes and specifically how you weaponize one of the greatest defensive powers in comic book history.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because really everything boils down to one core question. On one side, we have the ultimate tactician, right? A master of strategy who absolutely controls the battlefield. And on the other side, we have the ultimate superhuman, whose instincts literally warn him of danger before it even happens. So who actually wins when preparation meets precognition?
To understand how this plays out, we really have to look at just how completely different these two are. You have Batman, a billionaire detective who has pushed himself to the absolute peak of human physical potential. He relies on an incredibly vast arsenal of cutting-edge gadgets, including a suit lined with a 200,000-volt electro network. And then you have Spider-Man. He's a broke teenage prodigy who relies almost entirely on his superhuman instincts. In fact, Spider-Man is so unbelievably strong that he actively has to pull his punches. If he didn't, he would literally destroy his human enemies. He fights with compassion, whereas Batman fights with cold, calculated discipline.
And when we say Spider-Man is superhuman, I mean his stats are genuinely jaw-dropping. Peter Parker completely eclipses Batman's physical abilities. We're talking lifting between 10 and 25 tons. He can run up to 700 miles per hour. That is literally faster than the human eye can even track. His durability allows him to take a grenade right to the face and survive direct blows from the Hulk. Now, Batman is peak human, meaning sure, he can bench press 1,000 pounds and survive incredible odds, but a direct physical fight out in the open, that is absolute suicide for the Dark Knight. He simply cannot match Spider-Man's raw power.
But here's the thing. Strength and speed aren't even Batman's biggest problem. The spider sense is. It's often joked about as just a simple caller ID for danger, but the sources make it super clear that it is much, much more than that. It gives Peter Parker a literal precognitive warning of a threat before the threat even fully materializes. It's what allows him to swing completely blindly through New York City without even looking. This is the ultimate roadblock for any street-level fighter trying to take him down.
6. That single number is quite possibly the most terrifying stat for anyone fighting Spider-Man. That represents 6 milliseconds. Based on the data, that is Peter Parker's reaction time. Think about that. That is roughly 40 times faster than a normal human being. The spider sense allows him to react to danger so insanely fast that he can literally dodge bullets that are already mid-air, reading the geometry of the shot before the trigger even finishes moving. When you're fighting a normal human, those 6 milliseconds are the difference between landing a solid hit and just punching empty air.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why a standard encounter is completely devastating for the Caped Crusader. Our source analysis puts it perfectly. The spider sense counters surprise and stealth, which are Batman's most valuable weapons. Batman is a master of the shadows, right? He relies on ambushing his opponents, disappearing mid-conversation, striking when you least expect it. But you cannot ambush someone who knows you're there before you even make a move.
Just imagine how a random encounter actually plays out between these two. If Batman tries to use his legendary stealth, well, the spider sense negates it instantly due to Peter's omnipresent awareness. If Batman drops a smoke pellet to blind him, completely useless because Peter doesn't even need his eyes to fight. His martial art, the way of the spider, lets him fight perfectly blindfolded. And if Batman throws his explosive batarangs from the shadows, they are instinctually dodged. In a random fight with standard gear, Spider-Man's natural abilities just effortlessly dismantle everything Batman brings to the table.
So, that leaves us with a totally fascinating tactical puzzle. How exactly do you ambush an opponent who knows what you're going to do before you even do it? If a random sudden encounter is a guaranteed loss for Batman, how on earth does a master strategist turn the tables?
Well, the answer, as pretty much any comic fan will immediately tell you, is the power of prep time. When Batman actually has time to study his opponent, the entire dynamic shifts. The sources note that with enough preparation, Batman transforms from a street-level brawler into the equivalent of a horror movie villain for other superheroes. He stops fighting a physical battle and starts fighting a psychological and environmental war.
So what does an actionable strategy actually look like against Peter Parker? A prepared Batman would likely implement a 3-step contingency plan to turn Spider-Man's greatest asset, that precognitive warning, into a fatal vulnerability. Step 1. Overload the sensory input. Step 2. Bait Spider-Man into an instinctual dodge. And Step 3. Don't strike where Spider-Man is, strike the destination. Let's break these down.
Starting with step 1, Batman has to completely rig the battlefield. He knows he can't fight Spider-Man on an open New York rooftop. He needs to bring him into a highly controlled environment loaded with sonic disruptors, specialized gases, swarms of drones, and environmental traps. Now, the goal here isn't necessarily to damage Spider-Man right away. The goal is simply to overwhelm the spider sense. Because if the warning system is screaming about danger from 50 different directions all at once, it just becomes static noise. And that creates just enough confusion for Batman to manipulate Peter's movements. So, the crucial point is this concept right here, predictive combat geometry. This is essentially the mathematical mapping out of precognition. It involves calculating the exact location an opponent will instinctively move to and aiming your attack at that destination rather than the target's current position. Batman is an absolute master at reading body language and anticipating attacks. He'd realize immediately that trying to outspeed the spider sense is completely impossible. Instead, he has to outthink it.
Our sources provide a perfect example of this utilizing the mercenary Deathstroke. Because of his enhanced brain activity, Slade Wilson operates on this exact logic. He aims at where you're about to be. A precognitive dodge is only effective if the incoming attack is aimed at where you currently are standing, right? If Batman calculates the geometry of the fight and throws a weapon at the exact spot Spider-Man's instincts are telling him to jump to, well, the spider sense essentially walks Peter right into the trap.
But tactical geometry isn't the only tool at a prepared Batman's disposal. If manipulating the spider sense proves too tricky, Batman would likely pivot to biological countermeasures. Basically, he wouldn't try to beat the spider sense, he'd just try to turn it off entirely.
Which brings us to what is dubbed the Nexus contingency. This is derived from hypothetical encounters analyzed in our sources. In this scenario, Batman built a specialized suit of impact-absorbing armor. But here's the catch. This suit isn't designed to make him strong enough to actually beat Spider-Man in a brawl. It has one single purpose, to keep him alive just long enough to land a single hit. And that hit would be delivered by a specialized compound blade. It's not meant to injure, it acts as a delivery system. It would inject a chemical cocktail perfectly calibrated to target and shut down Peter's altered spider biology mid-fight, meaning no more strength, no more speed, and most importantly, no more spider sense, completely neutralizing him without using lethal force.
So, pulling all of this fantastic source material together, we get a very clear verdict. In a random encounter with no prior knowledge and just their standard gear, Spider-Man wins, hands down. He is simply too strong, too fast, and the spider sense totally neutralizes Batman's toolkit. However, with prep time, Batman takes the win. He doesn't overpower Spider-Man, he controls the environment, builds the exact countermeasures needed to disable Peter's powers, and turns the whole fight into a psychological trap that started days before the first punch is even thrown.
When we look at these matchups, prep time is always the ultimate wild card. Preparation transforms an otherwise impossible fight into a highly calculated victory. But I want to leave you with this question to debate. Is Batman's prep time the ultimate tactical equalizer that proves human intellect can actually conquer superhumans? Or, in a gladiator-style fight, is it basically an unfair advantage that completely skews the results? Let us know what you think down below. Thank you so much for joining us on this explainer. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and we will catch you next time.